Farrah Fawcett and Lee Majors looked like the definition of Hollywood royalty. When they walked the red carpet, cameras flashed endlessly. When they smiled, it seemed effortless, like a picture taken straight out of a dream. Together they looked untouchable, as if nothing could shake the golden image they represented. But behind the sparkle of stardom, far away from the flashing bulbs and screaming fans, their love story carried shadows, silence, and heartbreak that no one saw. For decades, the world only knew the glamorous version, the good-looking TV cowboy, and the golden-haired beauty who would become America's sweetheart. But fame has a way of turning love into a performance, and theirs became one of the most fascinating, yet quietly tragic romances in Hollywood history. Lee Majors stayed silent for years. He kept his feelings locked inside, just as he had done since childhood. He rarely spoke publicly about what really happened when his marriage to Farrah Fawcett crumbled, even as rumors and gossip swirled. But time has a way of softening old wounds. And eventually, he opened up, revealing the truth about the love he lost and the pain that lingered. This is not just the story of two stars. It is the story of two people, shaped by very different beginnings, who found each other in a fast-moving world, rose to dazzling heights together, and then fell apart under the unbearable weight of fame, expectations, and silence. Today, we look beyond the glossy covers and the headlines, back to the roots of their story. From childhood struggles to Hollywood glory, from love's first spark to its final fading light, here lies the untold truth about Farrah Fawcett and Lee Majors. Lee Majors wasn't born into Hollywood or privilege. In fact, his earliest days were marked by tragedy. Born Harvey Lee Yeary on April 23, 1939, in Wyandotte, Michigan, Lee entered the world already facing a mountain of challenges. His father, Carl, was killed in a steel mill accident before Lee was even born. Just a year later, tragedy struck again when his mother was hit and killed by a car. By the time Lee was 2 years old, he had lost both parents. He was taken in by relatives and raised in Middlesboro, Kentucky, a small working-class town nestled in the Appalachian Mountains. Life there was quiet, modest, and often difficult. From a young age, Lee learned how to be self-reliant. He was shy, reserved, and not the type to share his emotions openly. Instead, he focused on what he could control, working hard, staying disciplined, and finding strength in silence. As a teenager, sports became his sanctuary. On the football field, Lee found a place where his quiet strength could shine. He wasn't the loudest player, nor the one constantly demanding attention, but his grit and determination made him stand out. Coaches admired his toughness and work ethic. Football gave him purpose and identity, a way to escape the weight of his childhood losses. His talent on the field earned him a scholarship to Indiana University. Later, he transferred to Eastern Kentucky University, where he continued to play. For a while, it seemed like football might be his future. But fate had other plans. During a game, Lee suffered a serious back injury that ended his hopes of going pro. It was a crushing blow. Everything he had worked for, every dream tied to the field, vanished in a single moment. But sometimes life's greatest heartbreaks open doors to new paths. While recovering, Lee began to think about other possibilities. Acting wasn't an obvious choice for a quiet, small-town boy, yet something about it intrigued him. With his striking looks, chiseled jawline, tall frame, and piercing eyes, people often told him he had the presence of a movie star. Slowly, the idea grew stronger. In the early 1960s, Lee took a leap of faith and moved to Los Angeles. At first, it wasn't easy. Hollywood was filled with dreamers, and for every actor who made it, thousands were left waiting tables. But Lee carried with him the same determination that had once fueled his football career. He took acting classes, auditioned relentlessly, and refused to give up. It didn't take long for casting directors to notice him. His rugged looks, combined with his calm, understated presence, made him stand out. He wasn't flamboyant, and he didn't try to dominate a room. But when he was on screen, people couldn't look away. In 1965, Lee got his big break when he was cast as Heath Barkley in the popular TV western The Big Valley. Starring alongside Barbara Stanwyck and Linda Evans, Lee quickly won over audiences. His character, strong and quiet, mirrored much of who he was in real life. Hollywood had found its new leading man. By the late 1960s, Lee Majors was a star on the rise. He wasn't the kind of actor chasing wild headlines or desperate for attention. Instead, he built his reputation on being dependable, hard-working, and grounded. Producers trusted him, co-stars respected him, and audiences adored him. He had become exactly the type of man who might catch the eye of a whirlwind beauty destined to change Hollywood forever. Farrah Fawcett was born on February 2, 1947, in Corpus Christi, Texas. Unlike Lee, Farrah's childhood was filled with warmth, laughter, and the comfort of a close-knit family. Her father, Jim, was an oil field contractor, and her mother, Pauline, devoted much of her life to raising her children. From the very beginning, Farrah shined with an energy that drew people in. Even as a little girl, she carried a natural charm. Her sun-kissed blonde hair, radiant smile, and sparkling blue eyes made her stand out. But it wasn't just her looks. Farrah had a personality that could light up any room. She was fun, kind, and full of life, a girl everyone wanted to be around. In high school, she became a popular cheerleader, embodying the all-American ideal of beauty and spirit. She also entered and won several beauty contests, but she never came across as arrogant or conceited. Instead, she remained approachable, genuine, and warm. People loved her because she wasn't just pretty, she was magnetic. After graduating, Farrah enrolled at the University of Texas at Austin. It was there that her beauty gained national recognition. She was named one of the 10 most beautiful co-eds in the United States, a title that caught the attention of Hollywood agents. At first, Farrah hesitated. She was deeply attached to her Texas roots and wasn't sure she wanted to leave behind her family and friends. But eventually, curiosity and opportunity led her westward. When she arrived in Los Angeles, Farrah's impact was immediate. Photographers adored her. She wasn't just photogenic, she had a rare quality that made her images leap off the page. Whether it was a smile, a playful look, or a soft expression, she could connect through the lens in a way few could. Soon, she began appearing in commercials, magazines, and small TV roles. Audiences noticed her right away. She had that perfect balance of glamour and girl-next-door charm. She could look dazzling in high fashion one moment and completely approachable the next. Farrah had the it factor, something that can't be manufactured. By the late 1960s, she was steadily building her career. But those who knew her then often said that fame wasn't what she was chasing. She enjoyed her work, but she was still the same down-to-earth Texas girl at heart. She laughed easily, made friends quickly, and carried herself with grace. It was in this period of rising opportunity and new adventures that fate brought her into the orbit of Lee Majors, a meeting that would set the stage for one of Hollywood's most talked-about romances. The late 1960s in Los Angeles was a world of glitz, parties, and fast connections. Somewhere in that whirlwind, Lee Majors and Farrah Fawcett crossed paths at a Hollywood party. By then, Lee was already established as Heath Barkley on The Big Valley, while Farrah was just beginning to step into the limelight. According to friends who were there, their meeting felt almost cinematic. Farrah, with her golden hair and infectious smile, lit up the room the moment she walked in. Lee, tall and striking, carried himself with quiet confidence. When their eyes met, something clicked. It wasn't forced. It wasn't staged. It just happened. They began talking, and what might have started as small talk quickly deepened into real connection. Despite their differences, Lee's reserved, serious nature and Farrah's bubbly, radiant personality, they complemented each other. Lee admired her warmth and light-hearted energy. Farrah found comfort in his steadiness and quiet strength. Soon after, they began dating. At first, their romance was simple and genuine. They enjoyed each other's company away from the spotlight, learning about one another, building trust, and creating the foundation for something that felt real. Lee, already in the public eye, didn't try to overshadow Farrah. Instead, he supported her as she found her footing in Hollywood. As Farrah's star began to rise, Lee was right there, standing by her side. Theirs looked like love, the kind that's unshakable, the kind people dream about. And for a while, that's exactly what it was. But in Hollywood, love doesn't exist in a vacuum. As their careers soared, so too did the attention, the expectations, and the pressures. And while they seemed perfect on the outside, the reality of balancing two growing careers would soon test them in ways neither could have predicted. By the early 1970s, Lee Majors and Farrah Fawcett had become one of Hollywood's hottest couples. They weren't just dating, they were the couple everyone was talking about. Their good looks, charm, and undeniable chemistry made them a media favorite. Together, they seemed unstoppable. In July 1973, they sealed their love with marriage. For many fans, it was like watching a fairy tale come true. Here was the strong, silent TV star and the radiant beauty who was beginning to turn heads across America. The ceremony wasn't just about two people in love. It was a cultural moment, the union of two rising stars. At that time, their lives looked picture perfect. They had the beauty, the fame, and the careers most people could only dream of. Lee had become even more popular thanks to his new role in The $6 Million Man, a sci-fi series that became a massive hit. Farrah, meanwhile, was quickly making her mark, appearing in commercials and landing more acting opportunities. Everywhere they went, cameras followed. They were invited to the best parties, appeared on magazine covers, and became symbols of 1970s Hollywood glamour. Fans adored them, producers courted them, and the media couldn't get enough. But beneath the polished surface, the cracks were already starting to form. Their busy schedules meant they were often apart. Lee's filming commitments kept him on long shoots, while Farrah's career was rapidly accelerating. Fame brought opportunities, but it also brought distance. For a while, they managed to hold on, leaning on their love and loyalty. They were still young, still hopeful, and still believed they could overcome the challenges of Hollywood life. But time and pressure have a way of testing even the strongest bonds. And soon, the very spotlight that had elevated their love story would begin to expose the growing distance between them. At first, the cracks were subtle, almost invisible. Long work days turned into longer separations. One film project would keep Farrah on set across the country, while Lee's demanding schedule as the bionic hero of television meant endless hours in front of cameras. What started as, "We'll make it work," slowly began to feel like we're never in the same place. And in Hollywood, absence is rarely quiet. The media noticed when Farrah appeared alone at events. Rumors began swirling. Whispers of trouble at home made their way into tabloids. For Lee, who had always been private and reserved, this was unbearable. He had spent his whole life keeping his pain and feelings inside. Now, his personal life was being dissected in public. For Farrah, the pressure was equally heavy. She was no longer just a rising star. She was on the brink of becoming a cultural phenomenon. In 1976, she landed her iconic role on Charlie's Angels. Overnight, Farrah became a household name. Her poster, featuring her dazzling smile and sun-kissed hair, sold millions, making her one of the most recognizable faces in the world. She wasn't just Lee Majors' wife anymore. She was Farrah Fawcett, a superstar in her own right. This shift created tension. Lee, who had always been steady and loyal, now found himself struggling with the new reality. He loved Farrah deeply, but the demands of fame, the distance, and the constant scrutiny began to pull them apart. They tried to hold on. They tried to make it work. But the more the world claimed Farrah as its own, the harder it became to maintain the private love they once shared. By the late 1970s, the marriage was unraveling. Lee and Farrah were living in different worlds, their once strong connection strained by fame and distance. In 1979, they officially separated. The news shook Hollywood. Fans who had idolized their love story were devastated. How could a couple, so perfect on the outside, have fallen apart? For Lee, the separation was painful beyond words. He didn't speak much about it publicly. True to his nature, he kept his emotions guarded, but those close to him knew how deeply he hurt. Farrah, meanwhile, continued to rise. Her career soared, her name echoed across America, and she became more independent than ever. The love that once looked unbreakable had slipped away. And though their lives would go on, neither would forget the time they had shared, or the heartbreak that followed. After the split, Lee Majors rarely spoke about Farrah. For years, he kept his feelings locked away, focusing on his work and moving forward. But silence doesn't erase the past. It only buries it deeper. Farrah, too, moved on, later entering a long and public relationship with actor Ryan O'Neal. Yet, even then, her connection to Lee remained part of her story. Decades later, Lee finally opened up about their marriage. He admitted how difficult it had been to see her rise to stardom while their relationship fell apart. He revealed that he had loved her deeply, and losing her was one of the hardest experiences of his life. His words carried the weight of years of silence, finally breaking through the quiet strength he had held on to for so long. In the end, the story of Farrah Fawcett and Lee Majors wasn't just about two stars in Hollywood. It was about two people who found each other, loved each other, and lost each other in the whirlwind of fame. Their marriage didn't last, but their story remains unforgettable. Farrah went on to become an icon, remembered not just for her beauty, but for her courage and strength. Lee continued his career, respected and admired for his talent and resilience. And even though they went their separate ways, their time together left a mark on each other and on those who watched their love unfold. It's easy to look at the glamorous photos and think they had it all. But behind those perfect smiles were two people trying, failing, and learning. Two people who, in their own ways, carried the scars of love and loss. Today, when Lee Majors speaks of Farrah, it is with respect, tenderness, and a quiet sorrow. She was the love he once had, the love he lost, and the love he never quite forgot. And that is the heartbreaking truth, behind the spotlight, beyond the fame, about Farrah Fawcett and Lee Majors. After her split from Lee Majors, Farrah Fawcett entered a new chapter that would be just as public and just as complicated. In 1979, she began a relationship with actor Ryan O'Neal, another Hollywood star with a reputation for charm and volatility. For the world, it was yet another headline-worthy romance. For Farrah, it was a chance to move forward, to start fresh after the heartbreak of her marriage's collapse. Their relationship was passionate and intense, filled with highs and lows that often spilled into the public eye. Ryan was charismatic, fiery and unpredictable, the opposite of Lee's steady and quiet nature. Where Lee had been reserved, Ryan was expressive. Where Lee had been private, Ryan was dramatic. To many, it seemed that Farrah had traded stability for excitement. For years, Farrah and Ryan's on-again, off-again relationship fascinated fans. They became fixtures in Hollywood gossip columns, their love story unfolding with twists that rivaled any movie script. But despite the turbulence, there was a genuine connection. They had a son together, Redmond O'Neal, born in 1985. For Farrah, becoming a mother was transformative. Redmond became the center of her world, her source of unconditional love. Meanwhile, Lee watched from afar. He didn't comment publicly, true to his nature, but those who knew him said it wasn't easy. Seeing Farrah build a new life with someone else was painful. Still, he respected her choices. After all, their paths had diverged, and the world they had once shared was gone. Though her relationship with Ryan was far from simple, Farrah never stopped being the woman who lit up every room she entered. Even in love's chaos, her warmth and radiance never faded. Lee Majors also moved on, though in a different way. After his divorce from Farrah, he threw himself into work. His role as Steve Austin in The $6 Million Man had already cemented his place in pop culture, but he continued to appear in television and film, maintaining his reputation as a strong, dependable actor. In his personal life, Lee remarried several times. He sought companionship, stability, and perhaps a chance to build the family life he had longed for since losing his parents as a child. But no matter how many new chapters he opened, the shadow of his marriage to Farrah always lingered. She was the love that had defined his youth, the one story everyone remembered. Unlike Farrah, Lee kept a much lower profile. He avoided the party circuit, kept his private life out of the tabloids, and maintained a quiet dignity. His reserved nature never changed. He was still the strong, silent figure he had always been. In later years, when asked about Farrah, Lee chose his words carefully. He never spoke ill of her. Instead, he recalled their time together with respect and fondness. He admitted that losing her was one of the most difficult experiences of his life, a heartbreak that had shaped him. By then, he had made peace with the past. He had found contentment in his work, his family, and his life away from the chaos of Hollywood. But deep down, there was an unspoken truth. Some loves never truly leave you, even if they're gone. Farrah Fawcett's life took a tragic turn in 2006 when she was diagnosed with anal cancer. The news shocked the world. America's golden girl, the woman who had symbolized beauty, health, and vitality, was suddenly facing a devastating battle. But true to her nature, Farrah didn't hide. She confronted her illness with the same courage and openness that had defined her career. In 2009, she allowed cameras to document her journey in the powerful documentary Farrah's Story. The film showed the raw, unfiltered truth of her fight, the pain, the treatments, the moments of hope, and the crushing setbacks. Fans around the world were deeply moved. They saw not just the glamorous star, but the woman beneath, the mother, the fighter, the human being. Farrah's bravery turned her into an even greater icon, one whose legacy went far beyond beauty. Lee Majors, though no longer part of her life, was deeply affected by the news. Privately, he reached out to her during her illness, offering support and compassion. Their history was complicated, but their bond was undeniable. Reports suggest that Lee and Farrah shared phone calls in her final years, reconnecting on a human level, beyond the pain of the past. On June 25, 2009, Farrah Fawcett passed away at the age of 62. The world mourned her loss. Tributes poured in from fans, friends, and fellow actors. She was remembered not just as the poster girl of the 1970s, but as a woman of incredible strength, grace, and courage. For Lee Majors, it was a heartbreaking reminder of the love he had, once held in his arms, and the life that had slipped away. Even after her passing, the names Lee Majors and Farrah Fawcett remain forever linked. They were one of Hollywood's golden couples, a symbol of beauty, strength, and glamour in the 1970s. Their love story, though it ended in heartbreak, left an imprint on pop culture that still lingers. For fans, they represented the dream. Two beautiful stars who seemed to have it all. For those who look deeper, they represent the reality. Love is fragile, fame is heavy, and even the brightest flames can burn out. Farrah's legacy lives on through her work, her unforgettable presence, and her courage in the face of illness. Lee's legacy continues through his iconic roles and his enduring reputation as one of television's most reliable leading men. But together, their shared history tells a story bigger than either of them alone. When people look back on the 1970s, they still see that perfect image. Lee Majors, the $6 million man standing beside Farrah Fawcett, the angel who captured America's heart. That image will never fade. In the end, the love story of Farrah Fawcett and Lee Majors wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about the red carpets, the magazine covers, or the flashing cameras. It was about two people who found each other, fell in love, and tried to hold on while the world pulled them in different directions. Their marriage didn't last, but their connection endured in memory, respect, and quiet affection. Even after decades apart, even after new relationships, even after loss, they remained linked by something deeper than time. Lee Majors once said that some loves you never forget. Farrah was that love for him. She was the light that entered his life when he was rising, the woman who stood beside him when the world was watching, and the memory that lingered long after the cameras stopped rolling. Farrah Fawcett and Lee Majors will always be remembered as Hollywood royalty. But beyond the spotlight, their story is a reminder that love, no matter how bright, no matter how brief, leaves a mark that never fades. And that is the final, heartbreaking truth of their love story. Two stars who found each other in a crowded world, only to discover that even the strongest love can be undone by time, fame, and fate. Yet in memory, they will forever shine together. Time has passed, but the world has never forgotten Farrah Fawcett and Lee Majors.